There's a strange phenomenon occurring in Denmark for the last about 5 years, which I don't know if you have noticed and also if the audience here have noticed. That is that some people, they claim that democracy cannot exist without Christianity. Of course, we know that the Danish Protestant way of Christianity is sort of supporting the secular system. But now a group of Protestant priests, some of them are in Dansk Folkeparti, and there's a philosopher, Kai Sørlander, who also claims that the Danish democracy as we know it, it will fall into pieces if we become more secular. I think they are afraid of what is happening in Sweden, where they took the Folkekirke out of the state system. But I find to me it's completely non-understandable that they are arguing this way. I, of course, recognize the place of Christianity in the history of Denmark and how it has that religion has not really interfered with politics and so forth. But to sort of start this movement now, there's also a Danish former Protestant priest, Kirsten Sarau, who writes a lot about this and those politicians in Dansk Folkeparti. Have you any comments to that?
It's a strange argument for them to be making. I thought you were going to say, I mean, I have to think, in my limited knowledge of Denmark and Danish history, that Christianity played a very big part over the centuries in how Danes came to see the world and their ethics and their morals. And I have to think that, and I don't know, you tell me if I'm wrong, but if there's one person perhaps most responsible for shaping Danish cultural consciousness, it would be Grundtvig, I think. So I certainly think that there's a point to be said that Christianity is a strong ingredient of the cake that is contemporary Denmark today. But to argue that you have to be Christian to have a healthy democracy is a very strange, that sounds like a desperate man or woman. And the only direct experience I have was when I interviewed a fascinating young man named Morten Messerschmidt. And he looked me straight in the face and said, I am an absolute atheist, but Denmark must stay a Christian country. And we are a Christian country, and I support this Christian country. And it was strange to see that combination. He's a convinced atheist, not just, oh, there's more between heaven and earth, but a convinced atheist who yet still champions Christianity as being sort of Danish and part of the Danish system of government. So it seems to me more of an argument based on fear of Islam, and it seems to be an argument to me, maybe the Danish Folkekirke is a little nervous about their dwindling numbers, and so they're perhaps, but I can't imagine this viewpoint is shared by the majority of priests in Denmark, is it? I mean, it sounds like a pretty silly and strange. Yeah.
No, but this argument from Messerschmidt that you heard, that he's an atheist himself, but he will support the Danish Folkekirke, I'm hearing it all around.
Okay.
From people from SF and other places, because I gather, like you, that they are afraid of Islam.
Are you?
Me personally?
Yeah.
Well, let's say that the essence of Islam is not, they're not sharing my values.
Okay.
Muslims can be nice people, but Islam as an ideology is certainly not nice in my point of view.
Okay, thank you.
Your answer, right?
Yes, that was...
I'm just thinking about your studies with the confirmation here in Denmark. And I was wondering if you've made any thoughts yourself or made any studies regarding the age of when they have to make this decision. Are they ready to make this kind of decision? And I think as fathers, I think that's where we feel threatened by the church. That, I mean, I think most people are ready to make this kind of decision when they're in their 20s. So doing it when they're 12, 13, 14. Any comments or thoughts?
Yes, I think age is a big factor. And I think, in fact, One person said to me, oh, the ones that choose to non-formate are the mature ones, because that means they don't want to just do what the group is doing. You know, my daughters have been in Danish schools now for 2 years, and I notice, much more than in America, there's an emphasis on sort of your class and everybody being friends, that this is really important. It seems to be the most important thing, that the class is kind of a unit and they do things together. And, oh, science and math and reading and history, I mean, those things are sort of important, but what's really important is pasta and cake. And that's really important. So it takes a certain kind of 13-year-old to say, I'm not going to do this. I mean, it's remarkable. And the ones that I talk to, they even say, oh, none of my friends believed it either, but they wanted the presents and da-da-da-da. So I think maturity is an issue, and I'm sure that if you waited longer, you would have far more kids not doing it because the peer pressure is less strong and they're more mature. And it's probably why the junior confirmation, this junior confirmation was probably made up in some priest's office thinking, oh shit, we got to get them younger. They're starting to, but I will say, on the other hand, it's the nature of religion to teach your children to be religious, as it's the nature of, I mean, I cut the tip of my son's penis when he was 8 days old. He really didn't have a say. And I think if I waited till he was 20, he might have not gone through with it. So I think that's just the nature of the beast. But I don't know, to me, also another thing I think that would be a big factor, if I were a Dane, and unfortunately I'm not, I know that's not a very Danish thing to say, but if, it seems to me that the priest would be a big influence. I mean, if you liked the priest, you respected the priest, you thought the priest was a reasonable person, a thoughtful, kind person, maybe it wouldn't be such a big deal. But of course, if you didn't like the priest and you thought the priest was awful or strange, maybe it would be worse. But I agree that the fact that you even have to have this issue in your life is unfortunate and strange to me.
And that's why we're not talking about snowmen in Saudi Arabia.
Yes. Okay. I hear you. I hear you.
I was very positive surprised to hear you remark about that the atheists have a strong moral view.
Yes.
And because that is a very common argument.
Yes.
That you can't find. But have you any studies that tell us what are the basis of this moral? You say, because in this discussion you will meet people say we find our moral in the religions stories or something like that.
Yeah.
How do the atheists find this moral?
It's a great question. It's a great question. It's just one of the oldest arguments that without God you can't be moral. I mean, this phrase from Dostoevsky, I think Brothers Karamazov, without God everything is permitted. I mean, permissive. I mean, you hear it again and again in the United States. You hear it constantly. I mean, if you don't believe in God, you have to be immoral. You have to be wicked. So yes, it's a very strong and common argument, at least in the United States. I don't hear it so much in Scandinavia. So where do the atheists get their morals from? I mean, they're against the death penalty. They're against torture. They want to stop global warming. They're for women's rights and gay rights. And I mean, where are they getting it from? Well, there's a couple ways to answer that. One is we have to ask them, which is what I would do as a sociologist. And the other is we can sort of philosophically speculate. And there are people that sort of write books about secular morality. In fact, there's a Dane, Kai, is he a Dane? Kai Nielsen wrote this great book on secular ethics. But so I can't give you a definitive answer. It seems to be that they get it from the kind of upbringing they have. And they are raised in homes that are fair and loving and kind and warm. And I strongly believe that if children are raised in homes where they are loved and supported, they will grow up to generally, most of the time, be good people. And you don't need to talk about any magical beings. So, and maybe I'd like to say that they have reason and they have, but I don't know. I think they get it from their parents and their society around them. That's the way I look at it. But we need to do more research on that. We really do.